Hi, Doug. It's so nice to have you on the show. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm good today, Elisha. Thank you, man. I'm really honored to be here.
Beautiful. And thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate it.
Yes.
And you see, Doug,
Absolutely.
I say this all the time to all of my guests because I feel like it is very important for me to say it. You see, firstly, I want to thank you for two things, Doug. Firstly, I want to thank you for investing in yourself. You see, you are on this platform right now because you invested in yourself. And you see, oftentimes, I love to make reference to the amazing mango tree. You see, I was on this particular road some months back, and there was this mango tree by the roadside, and I just walked past it because it doesn't look attractive at all. It's got no mangoes on it, and it just looked dry and hot. And I just walked past it. But you see, dog, just recently, I was on that same road again. This time around, mm, something changed. I sighted the mango tree from afar, from a distance. Then I told the one beside me, I said, you see, that particular tree right there, I've got to have a good look. I want to move so close to it. And I got closer to it, and this time around, it wowed me. You know why? Because now it's got a lot of mangoes on it. And it looks so beautiful and attractive. And oh man, the point is the fact that you dedicated your time, energy, and resources to becoming the amazing person that you are today attracted me to you. Getting to learn a bit about you and reading your profile, man, I just couldn't take it. I said, I must benefit from this knowledge, not only me, but even the listeners too. So thank you so very much, Doug, for investing in yourself. And secondly, thank you for honoring the invite. I truly appreciate it. It means a whole lot. Thank you, man.
What a
Again,
beautiful story.
yeah.
Can I say this about what a beautiful story and what a beautiful way you told it.
Thank
So
you.
you told a beautiful story. Wow.
Thank you, man.
I'll be thinking of that mango tree all throughout our interview.
Thank you. Okay, let's get started. You see, I am quite excited to have you on the show, though, for some reasons. Firstly, my interest in knowledge seeking, because I believe in order to transition from a chaotic situation to that of a beautiful one, I believe it takes the application of knowledge. Not just knowledge, but the application of it. And you see, ever since I discovered that light in the Hebrew means knowledge and darkness means ignorance, I've been so keen to knowledge seeking because I do not want to remain in the dark. So that's going to make our conversation today very important to me and even to the listeners. The second reason why I'm excited to have the amazing dog on the show is for the sake of the listeners. We live in an age where information is not scarce. We've got a lot of informations out there, how to do this and how to do that. So those folks trust me for quality information. And that's why when I came across your profile, the things I saw now, I was amazed and excited at the same time because I believe our conversation is going to be insightful and impactful. So for that reason, Doug, let's get started with your introduction. Talk to us about your personal or professional journey. We are just so curious. We want to know how you got here. Then afterwards, I've got some beautiful questions for you. Okay, Doug, over to you.
That's a big question, Elisha, right? It's like, tell us about yourself and tell us. Maybe I'll start with I'm soon to be 66 years old. I've been a therapist, a psychotherapist for close to 35 years. That's been my career field. My dear father, who got discouraged with me when I was in my undergraduate university program and I was continuing to take general education classes, and he was paying my way graciously through that experience. And he said, how long do you think you're going to be at university? It looks like you're going to be there forever. You have to declare a major. So I actually declared a major, which was agriculture, I was not from a farming community. I grew up in a farming area, but it was not a farming family. But education, I was in agriculture education. So I graduated from university and spent a few years teaching high school. And It was really interesting because it never really was a good fit for me. I had a sense at a 22, 23-year old that there was something else in my future. And I actually quit teaching and moved back home. And my parents took me back in. And it was a very difficult season in my life. And some things fell apart for me personally. There was some trauma in my background that I didn't even know really that it was trauma. I didn't know how to name it or call it that. And so I sought out a therapist. The spirit seemed to just move me in that direction. And I ended up in a therapist office and began to unpack my personal journey. And it was through that experience that my dear father came around the second time and said, I don't think you belong in agriculture. I think you belong to being a therapist. And he said that. My father and I were not very close at that period of time in my life. My father was emotionally very shut off. I kind of knew he loved me from a distance, but we were not close. But since that, I look back and think, my father, even though he didn't talk to me a lot in my early life, he was observing my life from a distance. He didn't know how to be close really with anybody. So he said, I think you belong to be in therapy. So I went and got a counseling degree, and the rest is history in regards to my work. I don't know how much of my bio you read. I will tell you that I've had an up and down journey personally in my life. I've had a few other times. I've told you I fell apart there in my early years. I was a troubled kid. I was very confused about my emotions. I didn't have language to name them. I didn't grow up in a family that helped me understand what are you feeling and why are you feeling it. And so really, in essence, if we try to boil my work down, which I never like to do because I could talk about my work for hours, but if we boil it down to what's one way you could describe what you do, I help a man understand what he's thinking and feeling and why he's thinking and feeling it. So it really comes out of my own journey. Another way I would phrase that, Elisha, is I'm really interested and inspired to help a man understand how he has become who he has become, how he's become. What's the process that influenced you? What has your journey been about? And where have you arrived to in regards to your own sense of self and what you're doing in the world? And many times, men of ages 20, 30, 40, 50, or however, and I've worked with all those age groups. I like working with younger men, to be honest with you. I really like that between 20 and, uh, it doesn't mean I won't work with somebody who's my age or even older, but I like that 20 to 40-year bracket. I just find that there's a lot of hunger and angst in that season of life to say, who influenced me? How am I living my life? How am I thinking? How am I feeling? And how am I acting? So those are the places that I do my work. And it really all comes from my own personal journey. I've spent a lot of time not only being a therapist, but I've spent a lot of time in therapy. I've had numerous therapists, both male and female. I was recently asked, so why would you seek out a male therapist or why would you seek out a female therapist in your background? And I would say, well, there are times where I just felt inclined to meet with a man or meet with a woman. Other times, it's just kind of the way it worked out by referral or something. And then I said this, and this was in another podcast that I recently did, and I want to share this with you. It would be easy for your listeners to assume that, well, let's see, you went to a male therapist because you were working on masculinity, and you went to a female therapist because you were working on femininity. I ascribe to Carl Jung's understanding of the masculine and feminine energies within all of us, no matter gender. There are masculine traits and energies within me. There are feminine traits and resources within me. And it's all about the alignment of those two capacities. So, in regards to me seeking out a male therapist or a female therapist, uh, it'd be easy to think, well, the female therapist again helped you become more feminine. I can tell you that the most profound experience that I ever had about discovering the feminine traits within me as an identified male in the world was with a male therapist. He taught me how to cry. He taught me how to cry. He invited me to my own trauma, to my own experiences. And I had discredited them as either I was defective in getting hurt by a situation, or I caused the situation. Or as a young man, I would say something like, well, it wasn't that big of a deal. It wasn't that big of a deal. And he helped me understand, actually, Doug, it was a big deal. Let's explore what happened to you. And how has that influenced how you think and feel and act? That's been my own personal journey. I'm still doing my work, soon to be 66 years old. We never stop doing our personal work, because the great Celtic poet, who's no longer with us, John O'Donohue, said this: "It is difficult and slow to become new." And that sounds in some ways like discouraging information or truth. Wait a second. We all are impatient, I think, by nature, and we want the mangoes to grow on the tree sooner than they're ready to grow. But back to your story, you had, in one sense, to surrender to the tree will either never bear fruit or it'll bear fruit in its own time. And so I found the personal transformation that you even speak about me doing in my work. It's been slow and it's been difficult, but newness can come. And so my work is coming alongside a mango tree, if you will, and helping that tree bear its fruit. So it's a very honorable position that I hold in many men's lives.
Amazing. Powerful. You see, it sounds really interesting and sweet to hear you talk. Why? Because your words are really insightful, just like I mentioned in the beginning. And you see, you mentioned some of my favorite words. That part where you say you help and inspire. And you say, dog, I feel like if average male or man in the world today can learn how to manage their emotions, um there will be a decrease in crimes, in terrorism, and all of these bad things that we have today. Because many of these things was as a result of having a father who wasn't really there for you, to teach you right and wrong, to caution you when you're going astray, to educate you. And you see, I tell you, you are one of the most very important asset to this planet with what you're doing. You see, you're not just trying to solve a present problem, but you are solving a generational problem. Because when you get one man fixed with your practice, you've saved a whole generation. I tell you. And I'm going to be talking about your practice, all right? I wanna I'm going to pick the first question from there. Okay?
Wait.
So let us look at your approach. All right? Hold on a sec. Okay. So what role does embracing one's true self play in overcoming feelings of inferiority or ineffectiveness? Okay, let me take that again. What role does embracing one's true self play in overcoming feelings of inferiority or ineffectiveness? You got it?
Yes, I've got it. It's the foundation of an individual life, is the concept and lived experience of self. I'll answer it by way of when I was an adolescent. The memory I have as I look back, and I've been looking back, I put a lot of stake and importance in the past. One can, to your point, the value of self. We could talk about the value of a sense of self, that divine self within. We could talk about that all day. But to be aware and in touch with that, I think there's an immediacy to that, of a self-mastery on the inside, to where somebody feels organized on the inside. And if you're not, and many men, to your point, many men are so disorganized and there's so much chaos on the inside. And then we see the chaos expressed in behavioral ways, especially with anger. And I'll speak to that anger piece in a moment. because I have something that might be very helpful for your listening audience. It sure has been helpful in my work. But back to I think about my young self, and for all practical purposes, I didn't have a sense of self. The way I thought about it and felt about it, even though I didn't really have language for it as a young man. I'm talking when I was 12, 13, 14, 15 years old. I felt hollow on the inside, like I didn't have a center. And so where does that leave you? It leaves you susceptible to all the exterior influences. And so I thought in my life the affirmation from others to tell me who I was. Tell me who I am. And the problem with that is that I got a lot of mixed messages about somebody saying, well, you're this, and somebody saying you're that. So all of those exterior influences, they're beneficial, but self-mastery and peace on the inside comes from when I know who I am, no matter who the world tells me that I am. And sometimes those are in alignment. I feel very honored by you and your initial comments about me, because it affirmed that I've worked hard in my own personal journey. This has not just been a career I thought, well, I've got skill to do this. And I've really lived it with integrity, because I thought I can't do this work if I can't do the professional work if I've not done the personal work. So really, my adult life has been all about trying to discover, not build within myself a self, but believing that I was born with a center and a line. I refer to it as the sacred or divine self. And so, is it me? Yes, it's me. Did I create it? No, I didn't. It was imparted to me. It was given to me. Then we talk about the whole spiritual aspect of, well, one would ask in your audience, and you might be thinking, and I would ask you if you made that statement, well, who gave it to you? Where did this divine self come from? It's mysterious. It's elusive, meaning that it's not to be controlled and mastered. It actually is a living spirit within. And if you can get aligned with that living spirit within, then you will have peace on the inside. It doesn't mean you won't struggle in life, because life is hard. Life is difficult. It's equally beautiful. I lost a dear friend yesterday. That's a whole nother story of a significant loss in my life. Somebody who thank you. So within minutes of learning of his death, an early death, somebody that was truly as smart or smarter and as gifted or more gifted than me in the world, spent the last 10 years of his life suffering with early onset Alzheimer's. And then to see what that has done to his wife and to his children. Now they're grown adults. You look at the suffering of that, and I look at that and just go, that's devastatingly awful. But within minutes of hearing of his death, I also was watching a comedy show with my wife on television. And I found myself laughing and then thinking to myself, this is really weird. I've got some experience with grief because I've lived long enough to have family members. All my immediate family members are gone. Both my parents died at the age of 90. My brother died early at the age of 60. And so I don't have any living immediate nuclear family. I've got my own personal family. I've lost friends along the way. I've gotten acquainted by grief. So there I am watching a comedy show last night. I find myself laughing at what's on television. And then I'm in this kind of weird place with, wait a second. I just lost my dear friend. And I'm laughing. How do those live together? Well, they do live together. And then I thought about him, and he was just funny as hell. He was just a funny human being. And I thought, you know what? Wherever he is now, as he left this world, whatever that transition is, he's probably laughing with me, because he would laugh at this as well. Yeah. So grief is, that's something that I never thought that I would become. I don't claim to be an expert in grief. I'm not sure anybody really is, but I've had enough of it. I've lived it. I know how devastating it can be. And I also know that there are beautiful things you find along the way. So grief is also a really key piece of my work. I don't know how much more time we have that we could even talk about men's misdirected anger. Maybe that's for another.
Okay. You see, I love the word that you use for death. You said transition. And when I got a hold of the understanding of what that means in regards to death, it changed how I feel. Because just recently, my wife lost a dad, and it was a great guy. It was so painful. And you see, I just found myself living normal. And after hearing about his death, just like you mentioned, you were seated watching the comedy stuff and all. So I just found myself living normal. Then I realized that that's because I understood what happened. You see, I believe everyone was not created to be useless. We were all created to be useful to this world. And we're all born for a particular purpose, I believe. And once we are done with that purpose, we become useless in the world. We're not needed anymore. So we have to leave. Just like to every product, there is an expiry date. Once the product has reached its expiry date, no matter how beautiful the case is and how attractive it is, folks wouldn't want to eat it again because now it has expired. So it ain't needed anymore. So when I understood that stuff, I no longer weep all day and cry all throughout the week and looking all moody and stuff. I just, stay happy for the fella that left the world. And I believe wherever he is doing good. So that helped me, manage the emotions and all of that. So I love the word you use, transition. That's a good one. I got that. So, Doug, I see you want to talk about the anger stuff, and what we're going to do is we'd have to create another episode for that. All right. So now, yeah. So to bring this to an end, what would you like to leave the audience with, like a final thought? And to those folks who would like to learn more, reach out to you. You've shared some amazing stuff with us, and it resonated. They would love to get more details about it. How can that be possible?
Two things come to mind. I'll first answer what I'd like to leave you with, and that is the word I use, transition, what that then moves you to say about your father in law, and then what you taught me about a way to process death. I was in a small group recently, and somebody was talking in the small group. It was a very intimate group, and somebody was talking about a death of a family member, and they were talking about it in kind of a beautiful way, like the transition. It was beautiful and whatever. And then after they were done, I felt so moved to speak, and I was honest. And I've really struggled ever since I said it in the group, but I must stay true to what I said. I actually said, after a pause, after they were done, sharing kind of this beautiful picture of, I love the way you put it. There's an expiration date. You're no longer useful in the world. And so there's this beautiful transition. But I spoke up in the group and said, my first words were, I hate death. And I spoke from a place of pain, of what it's like to have a person in your life physically embodied in this world, and then they are gone, and they're gone forever. So it's interesting. There's so many facets about topics like death. It's a beautiful transition, expiration date. There's also a place to say, I hate it. I hate that it exists. It's robbery, but it's also a beautiful transition. So I learned something from you, but it also speaks to, we'll talk about anger in another episode. There's so many different angles and approaches. One that often is misguided is men are misrepresented as angry creatures, and anger many times is this misdirected passion. That's what I'll say for our next episode. People can find me at my URL is dougasguide.com, and I'll spell that out. It's my name, DOUGAS as, and guide, GUIDE. So all one word, dougasguide.com. There I introduce myself. I introduce my practice. I shifted from a clinical model that only allowed me to work in the state of Washington, where I'm certified. I now can work worldwide because I've moved my practice into a coaching model. And so I can work with people all over the world now, and I'm not restrained to only work in the state of Washington. So that has been a shift for me. So I feel like it's enlarged my place in the world. Gosh, I wonder when my expiration date will.
I love that. You see, listening to you speak is a great blessing, Doug, and I just can't wait for the next episode. Thank you so very
Let's
much.
do it, Elisha.
So that's gonna be the end of the show. Thank you. Thank you. That was a great